Hey everybody, time for another flea market finds segment. For those of you who are new to my channel, the flea market finds segment is what I tend to call these, but at any given point, it might be something that I picked up at a flea market or an estate sale, or in the summertime at a garage or a yard sale or swap meet, or even sometimes some items I buy from the used tool store. So, anyways, attended an estate sale, and so I got myself my Tim Horton mug ready to go. As you can see, it's still as ugly as ever after the horrible repair job, but it's held up through numerous dishwasher washings. So the Gorilla Glue is definitely living up to its reputation, and I have it filled with the delicious George Russell coffee. So this coffee that George gave me when I went up to visit him in New Hampshire is quite delicious. So, anyways, went to an estate sale. Let's dive right in. So, this estate sale was a 1 day only sale on a Sunday. And unlike other sales that I've gone to where it's a 2 day sale, being that it was a 1 day sale, it was a good chance that they were going to be looking to move everything in one shot. So, those of you who saw my previous estate sale video where I scored the Aloris, not the Aloris, where I scored the Do More tool post grinder and also those nice sanders and some other items at a real steal, know that the way I was able to do that was I got there so early that I made sure I was the first one in the door. Well, this sale started at 9 a.m. officially, but I also wanted to try and get there very early. So I thought I was going to be okay. And I was running a little late that morning. I got there about 6:15. So I got there 2 hours and 45 minutes before the sale started. And as soon as I started driving up to the house, I could see all the cars on the street. And I quickly realized that this estate sale, which is run by a different company, one I hadn't been to previously, um, this company is just notorious for attracting buyers, and people in the know that you've got to get there like crazy early, and they don't give out numbers right away, so you've got to start a sign-up sheet. But then if you start a sign-up sheet, the rule is you're supposed to stay with your sign-up sheet, and if you leave, then somebody could come along, take down your sheet, throw it away, and start their own and put their name at the top. And all they have to do is, when you come back and you say, "Hey, where's my sheet?" And you say, "Well, there's no sheet when I got here." And unfortunately, that's exactly what some people would do. So it's your responsibility to stay with it. And then they go one step further. They don't want people showing up a day early and putting a sheet up. So they basically say that, out of respect to their clients, they don't want anybody there before midnight. So technically, if you wanted to make sure you were there first, you could show up there at 12:01 a.m. and start your sheet, put your name on it, but then you're going to be willing to sit there in your car all night and babysit it. So I get there, and there's already quite a few cars there, and there's already a sheet started. So I go up to the door, and I get the clipboard, and I look at it, and I end up being number 23. So it turns out what was attracting a lot of the buyers that came to this sale were, in fact, the machinist tools that were there. And oddly enough, there wasn't a huge amount. There was more at the previous sale that I went to by the other company that I scored all that great stuff. There was more at that sale. What was there was a Craftsman rolling tool cabinet base with an intermediate cabinet with a top box. So a three-piece setup, kind of like what my Kennedy is. And it looked like it was loaded. But the other thing that was there, which was a real diamond, was an 11 draw Gerstner toolbox, oak toolbox, in what looked to be excellent condition. That also had stuff in it, but you could tell from the photos there wasn't anything really great in the box. That was going to be strictly the box itself. And I'll get to that in a little bit. So let's fast forward to the problem. I get there, I'm number 23 in line. So when they hand out numbers, I end up being number 23. That means 22 people are going to walk through that door in front of me. Now, it was a detached garage breezeway situation. So when they let you in, you had to make a choice. You make a left and go into the house, or do you make a right and go into the garage where all the tools were? So a certain number of people went right into the house, which was good, but a lot of people went right into the garage. Before the sale started, I struck up a conversation with a young man. I say young man, he was 20 something, and nice enough guy. And he had explained that he comes to a lot of these sales and he gets there really early, and he does sometimes stay there all night if necessary. And he had actually come to this sale very early in the morning because he says typically the houses are empty because it's an estate sale, so the house is on the market and they're just liquidating the furnishings. But he said in this particular case, somebody was sleeping there during the night, so I guess somebody came out and asked him what he was doing there, and or he had a little slight conversation, and he said he felt that they might be nervous about him hanging around, so he didn't stay as long as he usually does, or he didn't stay when he was there. He came back a little later. Long story short, he ended up still being able to be number one through the door. So this gentleman, myself, and two other gentlemen, we were just talking tools, talking machinist stuff, and whatnot, and talking about the sale. And since this was my first time at one of these sales, I was asking a few questions. And then when it came down to it, he had actually said that he actually wanted the boxes, which was interesting to me because it worked out that he was more interested in actually the toolboxes for tool storage. I didn't really have any interest in them. They looked like they were probably made for Craftsman by Kennedy because they looked just like Kennedy boxes. So they were good quality boxes, but I just didn't need them. I've got my Kennedys, and that's all I really need for now. Don't get me wrong. If I get a really good deal on a Kennedy box, I'll buy one. But anyways, I talked to him and I suggested to him that since he's going to be number one right through the door, that he go right up to the box and try and make a deal on buying the boxes with the contents, because I told him, I said, then I'd be willing to buy a few items from him. He actually said there was some stuff in there he'd probably just give away because he didn't want it. And so that's how we handled that. And there was a set of Mitutoyo inside micrometers, an inside micrometer with all the rods in a case that looked pretty nice in the photos. And we didn't know what any of these prices were until we walked in there. Although the rumor had already gone around, getting back to that Gerstner. When I mentioned that I was going to take a run at the Gerstner if the price was right, the word came out that there was a $300 price on the Gerstner, and that they were going to be pretty firm on that, at least for the first hour. So I felt a little bit better because it wasn't like I was missing the deal of the century on a Gerstner box. And some of you might think, hey, you know what, $300 for an 11 draw Gerstner in excellent condition is actually a good deal. It may very well be. Those boxes, believe it or not, in my opinion, are just too pretty to be in a workshop. Unless you've got a really clean shop where you've got a really small, maybe you're working on, maybe you're a gunsmith, and you're very anal retentive and everything is clean as a whistle in your shop and you keep everything nice and tidy. Then I think maybe you should treat yourself to a Gerstner. Otherwise, I put it into the realm of too pretty and collectible to be banging around a basement shop. Okay, so the Gerstner was pretty much out as far as I was concerned. So I told the gentleman number one, I said, well, I tell you what, if it's still there when I get to it, because it was off on a table, I said, I'll snag, because he was interested in the inside micrometer set. And I said, well, I'm not really interested in it. So I said, what I could do is I could snag that for you. If it's still there when I get in the door, I'll snag that for you and hold it for you and make sure nobody else gets it while you're working your deal with the Craftsman box in case that takes longer than expected. The end result was the inside micrometer set, they had $70 on it. So he wasn't interested at $70. I wasn't interested at I already have 1 or 2 sets, so I'm not interested in at that price either. They had a depth micrometer there in Mitutoyo with extra blades in a case. They had 50 on that. Trying to think of a couple of the other things that were there. But there wasn't a heck of a lot there to get excited about. So he walked in, he made the deal, he bought the whole all 3 boxes there with the contents, and promptly closed everything up and put sold signs on it. And then he actually came in a Jeep, so he couldn't take the rollaway cabinet right away. So he had to call for his dad to come down with the pickup truck to help him get this stuff out of there. And he lived an hour away, so we actually had some time. And they didn't want any dealings to go on between buyers there on the property. They basically wanted you to pay for your stuff and get it out of there before you did any deals. So we had some time on our hands. So we took turns basically babysitting that box, because even with the sold sign on it, people, if you walked away 5 minutes, not even a minute, people would start pulling the drawers open, and next thing you know, they'd be taking stuff out and going up to somebody and seeing if they could buy it. So I watched the box for him. When he walked around, then he'd come back and he'd watch the box, and I'd walk around, and we kind of got a little bit of a rapport there. So when it came down to the time for me to do a deal with him, he treated me pretty fair. I think he treated me as fair as I could expect, but nowhere near as good a deal if I had been number one and been able to get in there and grab a couple of these items. And we'll go through that in a moment. So there were a handful of items that I bought there from the estate, and then the rest of this stuff I went back and forth with gentleman number one, and we came down to a deal on a price for a package of stuff. All right, just a quick side note. I've just changed back over to my Nikon Coolpix 830. The audio quality is better on this camera, I think, and also I like that I can zoom in or zoom out with this thing, so it's better for looking at things up close, in my opinion, than the GoPro. Maybe not necessarily quality or whatever, but the point is that in case you noticed any changes, I do have this in 1080 mode, so the resolution is set to what the Hero was just set at. But I digress. All right, so I'm going to start off with the stuff that I bought from the actual estate auction itself. So walking around the garage, there were a couple items that I had spotted in the photographs that were put up for the estate sale that I zeroed in on and snagged those, and nobody else was excited about them, so I didn't you know, even being number 23 in line, there wasn't much danger of me missing out on them. So I put together a pile of stuff, and I ended up getting the pile of stuff that I had for a total of $40, which that includes this pile right here, which we'll go through in a second, and I'll just show you real quick 2 other items. I also snagged this pressure cooker. This is by a company called Cook's Essentials. I looked it up online. It's not that expensive of a pressure cooker. It's not like a $200 model or anything like that. But it had 10 bucks on it, so I gave 10 bucks for it because we have one now. Actually had 2. One of them we had, this little pressure relief valve thing here broke on the one we had, and I looked up online, and you pretty much couldn't get parts. You'd have to buy like a used one and swap the lids, which if you're going to do that, why bother? So that one essentially became junk, and the other one we have is that we got to replace that one is a smaller version. And because of the size of my family, it's just made more sense to have a larger one, I thought. So I figured, hey, why not get something that isn't all about me for a change? You can see it's clean as a whistle. I don't think this thing saw much use. So, anywho, 10 bucks for that. I haven't even tested it yet, but if it works, I think that's a good deal. And then I found this this desktop computer. No keyboard, no monitor, anything. Just the main computer, the CPU or whatever. out in the garage. Had 15 bucks on it. I offered 10 and they took it. So the only thing I know about it so far is that it is a Dell. It is definitely an older model because it's got Windows XP in it. But, you know, what intrigued me is it's loaded with peripherals. So it looks like, oh, we got a telephone modem because those are so handy. That's a video card, TV video card by the looks of it. Also pretty much useless these days. And then, well, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I'll probably do a separate video where I break into this and another used computer that I picked up at a while back that I got as a freebie at a clean out. That you guys saw that series, I think. Oh, one last thing I caught my eye on this thing. It's got 2 drives. So I'm not sure why it would have 2 disk drives on it. And I'm hoping there might even be a hard drive in there. It's got 3.5-inch floppy. That kind of dates it right there, huh? And a lot of people are probably asking, why do you bother with those old PCs? Well, because I've got 3 kids, you know. And the reality is that the kids are tough on PCs, and I haven't had to buy a new desktop computer since I've moved into this house and since we've adopted our kids. So, you know, we just, I fix up these old PCs when I get them, and whoever's got the oldest computer currently working, you know, we upgrade them. And so it works out that way. So I've got the desktop up in my office, and we've got the family desktop, and then the kids have desktops in their rooms. I have 2 boys that share a room, so they share a desktop currently, but the plan is to have them each have their own desktop. You know, they're getting up to the age where they need computer power more for homework and stuff. So, or at least that's what they say. Although they really are just going to play games on it. All right, so my pile came to $40 total, but you take out $20 for the $10 for the pressure cooker, $10 for the computer. That leaves $20 for this pile right here. All right, so the first item that I snagged, which was an item that I had actually spotted in one of the photographs, and I made a mental note what toolbox it was sitting in, a small toolbox off to the side. I went over and it was still sitting there. I guess nobody else was that excited about getting it because it was sitting right on top of the, you know, in the top tray area, so it was easily spotted by anybody. But it's a Jacobs number 14 ball bearing chuck, 0 to 1/2 inch capacity, and it's in seems like it's in good shape, and it's on a Morse taper. So I snagged that, and I figured, you know, I'd give $10 for that any day of the week. So really all I've got left here to justify is did I get, if the whole pile here is 20, did I get $10 more worth of stuff here? Yeah, I think I did. So let's start with this indicator right here, this indicator stand right here. This gentleman on YouTube, his name is Joe. I can't think of his last name. I think it's a Polish sounding name, begins with the letter P. He's got a great channel. He's a professional machinist, but he does a lot of tips and tricks types of videos. And I recall watching one of his videos one day, and he had this holder. And he actually took a moment to mention, kind of as an aside, about how much he loves this holder because of the style that it is. It's a magnetic holder. It's got this notch in it, okay? And he said that, boy, he uses this holder a lot, or that for certain jobs, this holder is just the thing. And I think he couldn't even remember where he had originally gotten it from, that he had it for so long. So this is a Eric, E-R-I-C-K, Magna holder, okay? So I kind of made a mental note of that, and I thought to myself, you know, if I ever see one of these in an estate sale, chances are I'm going to get it for next to nothing. So I'm going to make a note to try and pick one up. So lo and behold, I saw in the photographs, I spotted this, and I said, oh, there's one of those holders that Joe was talking about. So when I got there, unfortunately, this was in the one of the drawers of the Gerstner toolbox, and they had already said the Gerstner was going to go with the contents for $300. Well, so initially, when I inquired about it, the runner basically said, you know, the gentleman who was standing there watching everything, he said, everything in the box goes with the box, so don't take anything out of the box. So I didn't. I went over to another box, because I had spotted also in the photographs that box had this holder right here, which looked like the same kind of deal. So this thing looks like it's brand new. It looks like it's barely been used, if at all. Although I do see over here it is actually engraved with the original owner's name, or whoever owned it and decided to engrave it. I don't know if he was the original owner. Okay, he even put his initials on the back side here. That's sneaky. Sneaky. Figured if somebody tried to rub off the his name here, he could always go, aha, look at that. So anyways, this is an interesting little one because it's got a little bit of a different design. So the one shortcoming I see with this one that this one has is it doesn't have this notch, okay, which would make it, you know, for certain jobs, I think maybe even sitting right on the V on the way of your lathe. That would be, yeah, that's probably what that's there for. That's the cat's meow there. This one doesn't have that. But what this one has, which is interesting, it's got a couple of little improvements here. It's got a fine-tuned sort of thumb screw on it here, so you can really dial it in. And it has a, I guess they figured if the magnet was too strong, you could use this. Actually, that magnet on there feels stronger than this one. It's not bad, but you got this little part right here that when you push down on it, all it does is it cams up and pulls up on this. So that's the stored or locked mode, and then when you pull this down, the little foot comes down there and pushes this up and unlocks it. So I didn't think I was going to get this one, so I put this one in my pile, and then what ended up happening was, as the morning wore on, by the time I was ready to check out and put my pile together and, you know, pay for everything, the box hadn't sold. So I went over to the guy who was running the show and who sets prices, and I said, hey, if I take this out of that Gerstner box that hasn't sold yet, I said, put it in my pile, is that gonna, you know, mess you up too much? And he said, no, go ahead, take it. So I grabbed this, and so that's how I got my Eric Magna holder. So I didn't need this one anymore, but I knew that at that point I was probably gonna get it so cheap, the hell with it. I just kept them both. There was some new in the box, or still in the original box, little white boxes like this, Craftsman brand screw jacks for machinists. There's 4 or 5 of them. Somebody had snagged those before I got to them, though, so I missed out on those. Although, it's no big deal. So I'm thinking you got to take this rod off of here in order to store this in the box correctly. And looks like you got to loosen this screw to take this off. Well, now I know why the box looks like it does. It's like virtually no way I'm going to get this to go in there. Oh, it's close. It's a close fit. Alright, so this is all you gotta do. Let's leave it hanging out. I got those 2 mag holders. Then in the bottom of one of those boxes that just had some junk and stuff in it, I found these hold downs. These are massive. Well, massive for me, but I guess if you had a big punch press or something like that, these would be handy as hell. So these are marked over here, Vulcan number 68. And then over here it says Forged USA, but there's a W in the diamond here, and I recognize that from some wrenches that I've had, that's a Williams trademark. So these are made by Williams, and they're hold downs. So they're just big honking hold downs. So I figured, why the hell leave those there to go to the scrap metal guy at the end of the day when nobody else takes them? So I was the sucker who said, hey, yeah, I'll throw those in my pile. And then in the same box, I happened to be looking down there, not one T-nut to be found, but found 5 hold-down rods. So those Those are always handy. Then I found this nice looking base for a screw jack, but nowhere to be found was the rest of it. So I figured it's such a nice job somebody did making this. Maybe I'll, at some point, even if I just find the right size bolt and put it in there, it could be a kind of a half, you know what, screw jack. Again, it's going to be scrap anyways. And this little itty bitty boring bar, actually I think this boring bar was in the, I picked this out of the Craftsman toolbox that I cut a side deal for. So we'll get that, put that in that pile, as if it matters. And this hammer, it's a lead hammer. But the interesting thing about this hammer is this is an all metal hammer, appears to be all aluminum with lead faces. What I don't get is how you, when this gets all beat up and you can't, you know, it's too mushroomed out or whatever, and you want to recast these, how the heck do you do it? So I don't know whether or not this is a deal here where once they get too junked you just give up on it or what. There's no evidence that this comes apart. This appears to be one cast aluminum piece, and so I don't even know what holds these on there. So I don't know if there's a threaded piece that goes into the back of these, but I mean, you wouldn't thread into lead, right? That wouldn't hold for nothing. But I threw that in the pile because, again, I knew I was going to get that dirt cheap. So, you know, like I said, we're 20 bucks for this whole pile. If 10 of it's this chuck, then I got this pile for 10 bucks. This little indicator was worth 5 to me. So I did good there. I did good there. Now let's get to where I ran afoul of myself.